I was working in France on a film with Gerard Depardieu in French, so I had my hands full with that. And then I get this script in the mail, I think, and it's aliens from this person, Jim Cameron, and Ripley's on every page. And I remember thinking, golly, you think they would have let me know that something like this was gonna.
Like, what if I'm not available? What do you do then?
No, I know. And but I also thought it was one of the most extraordinary scripts I'd ever read. And when I finally got back to the States, I did meet Jim in Los Angeles for the first time. And he said, "Well, do you have any notes?" I said, "Are you kidding me? This is perfect, you know."
Welcome to the main stage here at the Javits Center, home of New York Comic Con. This very space is where all of the magic happens all weekend long. We are bringing you so many great panels and videos, some of them hosted by me, your video producer and host Ashley Victoria Robinson, and some of them hosted by a slew of amazing talent. If you want to be able to make sure that even though you're not with us or you're catching up at home, you see everything that happened this year in 2025, head over to thepopverse.com. We've got memberships, we've got so much access to all the coolest stuff. In the meantime, sit back and enjoy your feature panel presentation.
Wow. Thank you so much for coming. This is so exciting.
That's a nice way to start a Friday, Sigourney, right?
And thank you for that very lovely introduction.
Well, every word was heartfelt. You really have brought so much joy to all of us. Congratulations on everything. Let's talk, first of all, just like the space you occupy truly in the genre world especially. Is that something you fully embraced from the start? Is it something you wrestled with? I mean, Alien obviously really set you down a path, but it does feel like, you know, some actors would run away from that, but you've kind of embraced these roles in the genre world.
You know, I'm an English major, so I just read. I just read for the story. And if it's a good story, I don't care what genre it's in. I never really thought about genres. Now, I just thought of good stories, and now genres are a much more well-defined thing. But I'm glad I didn't really think about it. I'm glad I followed the story.
That being said, let's start with Alien. That story, that script, the legend is you didn't necessarily love the script at first, that you had some notes, some thoughts. Is that fair to say?
Well, I thought it was a very concise script, 10 little Indians, you know, knocking them off one by one. If you don't know what the alien design is, it's very hard to understand what this monster is running around dripping acid. So I kind of didn't have any idea of the rather beautiful exotic creature that the alien was till I met Ridley at the sort of audition, and he brought out these incredible pictures from Giger and from Carlo Rambaldi, and I realized I'd never seen anything like that in a movie ever, and that, I think, was that and Ridley sort of cinched the deal, you know?
It's interesting because the journey of Ripley in that film mirrors a little bit of your own journey as an actor, because essentially it's your film debut. You'd had some small things, but mostly in the theater. And, you know, an audience watching that film doesn't realize at the start you are the lead of that film. You are the hero of that film, and you are the star of that film, that you're starring in your first film. Like, you had to kind of like embrace that and kind of learn how to be number one on the call sheet, I guess.
I don't know that I was number one on the call sheet.
Well, you should have been.
Well, I don't. I think there was probably some dismay in the cast that this complete unknown, who'd never really made a movie before, was going to be the survivor. And the reason I was the survivor was our writers, Walter Hill and David Giler, thought no one will ever imagine that the survivor will be a woman. So that's thanks to Walter and David.
At least in that first film, do you remember like what your key into Ripley was? Was there a guiding force, a inspiration beyond just the words on the page?
Well, I remember that I made friends very quickly with Ian Holm, which is ironic since he's my big enemy. Yet, it's wonderful. And I said to Ian the first week, because I think we had that scene right away where they let the crew lets Kane back in, and I'm trying to keep him out because he's bringing something on the ship that we're not supposed to bring. And I said to Ian later, I said, do you think that Ripley feels what she's doing is right all the time? And he said, yes, absolutely. And I said, wow, I really don't think she knows that at all. It's a complete improvisation. She's flying by the seat of her pants, which in fact as an actor I was, because no one ever said the lines. It was just a free-for-all. And for me, being from the theater, I was like, so I was terrified, and that was easy to play.
Speaking of improvisation, the final sequence isn't exactly improvised, but it was changed quite a bit, fair to say. Was that kind of just fluid? Was it ever locked in the script, or did you guys just, I don't know, did you not quite get there until you got there?
I think it's the latter. I know that the guys from Fox came to the set, and we were a relatively small movie, but I guess our time was running out. Ridley was kind of playing around with our lovely young artist who was playing the alien, and he wasn't really sure how to end it and how to kill it. They hadn't really worked on how to make that come across visually, but he suddenly, I think, got the word, you've got to finish today and tomorrow. So they kind of figured out, water, and did a test. It worked, and so again, it was another sort of free-for-all. And I asked Ridley not to tell me if there was something in my little escape vessel, I didn't want to know anything about it. So I had the luxury of not knowing, which is a great thing for an actor. And I'm thinking I'm by myself, I've escaped and everything, and then this hand comes out. So all the rest of it was, and including the song, I just thought, how would I stay frosty if I had to do something like this? And I thought, maybe if I sing to myself, that will just distract me from what I'm trying to do and the impossibility of it. So it was, again, I feel very lucky that my first film was that, because I think that helped the movie, that we were all kind of, we never rehearsed, we shot on film, and that gives a kind of free-for-all feeling that I think was very good for the film.
We're gonna circle back around to Alien towards the end. There's a surprise you guys should stick around for. But I want to talk about Aliens, which is maybe the best action movie ever made, maybe the best sequel ever made. Ironically, it's that or T2. Jim Cameron knows how to make action movies and sequels. Again, Jim Cameron, not Jim Cameron then, at all. So when that comes around, what do you remember first meeting with Jim, reading the script? You must have been a little gobsmacked that they wrote this amazing journey for you.
I was working in France on a film with Gerard Depardieu in French, so I had my hands full with that. And then I get this script in the mail, I think, and it's Aliens from this person, Jim Cameron, and Ripley's on every page. And I remember thinking, golly, you think they would have let me know that something like this was gonna...
What if I'm not available? What do you do then?
No, I know. And, but I also thought it was one of the most extraordinary scripts I'd ever read. And when I finally got back to the States, I did meet Jim in Los Angeles for the first time. And he said, well, do you have any notes? And I said, are you kidding me? This is perfect,
Again, I feel like this entire room has probably read so much about the making of Aliens. I know I have. But, famously, I think you guys shot in the UK. That crew didn't necessarily take to Jim. Was it a fraught set? I mean, they kind of rebelled against him, as I understand it.
What I remember is that they loved Ridley, and they wanted Ridley to be directing this second film. They didn't know who Jim Cameron was. I didn't really know who he was. I just thought he wrote a great script.
You weren't a Piranha 2 fan? You weren't a big, I mean...
Well, I think Terminator had come out, but I didn't get to
fair.
see it.
Yeah.
And he and Jim kept setting up screenings for the crew at the end of the day, and they never went. So they did have an attitude, and it did take a while, actually. I remember, because I loved Jim right away, it was very easy for me to kind of go around and go, listen, yeah, I love Ridley too, but this guy wrote this, and he has this film Terminator, and he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
It's a natural. And so he impressed them gradually.
Got it.
And by the end, of course, they were, devoted to him.
There's so many iconic shots, scenes in that film. I mean, there are a couple that come to mind. One that always strikes me is like a wordless sequence. You're going down in the elevator into like the belly of the beast. It's just you getting ready, steeling yourself, loading the gun, James Horner's score. Do you remember that sequence in particular, or seeing the finished product? Because it's just like, it's pure cinema, what Jim was able to do in your performance. It's iconic.
Well, I remember it from my actor's point of view, which was, I now have to put myself in the gear of all-out battle. How do I do that? And I had to think of some of the great samurai movies I'd seen.
Yeah.
With Toshiro Mifune, he's the best. And I just remember, of course, I wasn't thinking about anything but what would I need to do? How would I need to prepare myself? Almost like everything I do is a preparation to enable me to do what I needed to do. Not that I even really knew what that was, and I talked to my husband. I was newly married, and he knew about samurai pictures too. So we did some talking about how a samurai would get ready. So to me, it was more mental and somewhat physical, and I love that sequence because of that.
The irony, of course, is now so many actors probably are thinking of you and Ripley when they're getting into a sequence like that. I mean, it's come full circle, hasn't it? When you read the line, "Get away from her, you bitch," are you sold on it? You're like, that's a bridge too far, that's badass. Like, what was the conversation, or were you sold on it from the start?
I just remember, by that time we were in these big set pieces, and basically it took a lot of work for the crew to open the door and have me in the power loader with John behind me, lifting the legs. But it felt like I was doing it, but everything was rehearsed and everything was in sync. But I felt I basically had only one or two chances. And I remember when I said the line, because I say it's something like, "Get away from her, you bitch." I go up, which is not really what you're supposed to do. If you want to sound brave, you should go, "Get away from her, you bitch." You should go down. And I went up like a little nerd. And it was like, "Get away from her, you bitch." Anyway, Jim loved it, and we didn't really get to do it again. Maybe one other time, but not very much, because it was such a huge sequence and so much to set up.
I'm gonna give you this. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if everybody else just geeked out on hearing Sigourney Weaver say that line 3 times, but I did. It's amazing. You get an Oscar nomination for that film, justifiably, which...
That's yours. gave me.
It's all good.
Okay.
It's, I mean, pretty shocking at the time. I mean, because, again, in the genre space, were you shocked? I mean, that must have been a moment to be acknowledged for that film.
I think I was surprised, yes, because it was very unheard of, and still kind of would be. But I knew that Jim had created the structure of a character and the story so that it was meaningful to people. And so I was delighted to be in a genre picture that did skip over all of that, and just for the story and everything else, regardless of the genre, it was embraced by the Academy.
I want to talk about Alien 3. I love Alien 3. I absolutely adore Alien 3. I know David Fincher himself has trouble talking about Alien 3, but for the record, there's some amazing stuff in that film. Where are you at with Alien 3, given David's feelings about it? Again, there was some troubled production. It was his first film. Do you like that movie? Do you enjoy that film?
I like it because it's so utterly different from the first two, and I felt that Fox was very smart to keep choosing very gifted directors who wanted to do something completely different with the Alien story, and I had total confidence in David. It was a script that had originally been written by Vincent Ward, and was all these monks in space in a kind of medieval garden, and my character, I guess, crash landed, and then I was in a coma for about half the movie. So I wasn't as crazy about that script. And I feel like David would have loved a chance to sort of work on the script before we had to start shooting, and we did delay, but not enough for him to feel he'd solved a lot of the problems. So I think we had the most amazing group of actors, amazing crew. So it's meaningful to me, and I don't really compare them. I think we were all a little shocked when he killed,
Newton Hicks right at the start.
I know, just, in the morgue. And that was hard for Ripley and for me. But once that was done, you gotta, that's space, you've gotta move on.
I mean,
These things happen.
That really should have been the tagline of the film. Alien 3, these things happen. Well, I'll have you know, to name drop, no less than Christopher Nolan has told me he loves Alien 3. So it's got its lovers.
That's great.
Out there. There have been so many, amazing, you obviously you work with Jean-Pierre Jeunet, Neil Blomkamp almost directs one. There have been so many filmmakers that have come close, Danny Boyle back in the day, I feel like for a minute. Was there any filmmaker in particular that you were dying to work with that I mentioned or didn't mention that you approached along the way?
Well, I had done a movie with Neil Blomkamp and Chappie, which I think the critics totally misunderstood. They were still, and maybe they still are, evaluating science fiction films based on their special effects. And Chappie's just a real story about a robot who wants to be a real boy, like Pinocchio. And so they completely misunderstood it and, I think underestimated it. But Neil had pitched me his Alien film, which did bring Newt back to life, and I was very excited about his designs and the script and everything else. And then I won't go into why it was stopped, but it wasn't. It was sort of about control.
Right. I think I can read between the lines there. I got you. I mean, there's been so much. I mean, Alien continues. Last night, by the way, Sigourney moderated an Alien Earth event. So I love that you embrace and look. I've talked to all these young actors that talk about you, whether it's Catherine Waterston or Kaylee Spaney or Sydney Chandler. It must be lovely to connect with these folks that have kind of inherited the mantle, as it were, of female lead protagonist hero in the Alien saga.
Well, I loved Alien Earth. I mean, I liked Romulus too. You know, I think they were both really good. I guess for me, especially, and I met Sydney yesterday and some of the cast, I see myself because it's, even though the movie had no profile, it still is a big responsibility. And so my heart goes out to them, you know, and I think that's made, you know, now that the movies are so beloved, I think probably there may even be more pressure. But I'm thrilled to still be working at my age because I feel I have an opportunity as an older actor to bond with the younger actors and kind of, you know, I guess the message I would always like to send out is, don't worry so much. It's going to be fine. Just hit your mark, say the lines, go for it, you know, and don't think about it after when you go home. Don't go, oh, I should have done this or that. Of course, everyone does that, but I really have faith in these young actors, and I think the cast of Alien Earth, the direction, everything else was just extraordinary, fascinating. And I was very glad to see that they didn't bring any of the creatures with them to the little seminar or whatever it was, because they might not be as nice as the actors.
For you, is the door absolutely 1,000% closed on ever playing Ripley in any capacity again? I mean, since Neil's close call, have there been any discussions with Jim or Ridley or anybody else?
You know, Walter Hill is a very good friend of mine, and he wrote 50 pages of where Ripley would be now, and they are quite extraordinary. So I don't know if it's going to happen, but I have had a meeting with Fox, Disney, or whoever it is now. You know, I said, except for Neil, I've never felt the need. I was always like, let her rest, you know, let her recover. But what Walter has written is so, first of all, seems so true to me. And it's very much about the society that would incarcerate someone who has tried to help mankind, but she's a problem to them. So she's sort of tucked away. And anyway, I think it's a very strong first 50 pages, and I'm thinking about, you know, working with Walter to see what the rest of the story would be. It would not be running around air shafts. It would be...
You've done your time.
Yeah, it would be a very different kind of alien with a really good script. Scary. Of course, the alien does show up. Inevitable. But I love what he's done with the character. He really gets her strength and her anger and her humor. And it's very hard to write. Surprisingly hard to write Ripley. Everybody makes you sound like a gym teacher. All right, people, let's do this, let's do that. It's you know, you can't, but Walter has it. He has the touch.
You have to remember, she goes up on the line, get away from her, you bitch. Well, yeah, that's Ripley. We all approve of this idea, safe to say.
Thank you, that's encouraging.
I want to hit upon some other roles in some other iconic films quickly if we can. Ghostbusters. More fun to play Dana or Dana inhabited by Zool?
I think Zuli.
Have you ever answered a door seductively saying, "Are you the keymaster?" in real life?
I probably have. But you know, I didn't realize till I think Ivan did one of those 30 years later things. I didn't realize that when I went for the audition, and being a theater actor, when I read that Dana turns into a dog, that's how I read it. And when I got to the audition with Ivan Reitman, I then, once I got to the end of that scene, I did then, grab cushions in my teeth and do some howling. And he then, well, first of all, he said, don't ever do that again. He said, it's so grotesque, an editor will want to use it. But what I didn't know is he then called Harold Ramis and said, Sigourney Weaver just came in and read for Dana, and she turned into the dog. Why don't we think about making that the story? And so to find out that 30 years later, and I couldn't imagine, I actually was disappointed that I actually had to turn into a special effect. I was prepared to play the dog all the way through.
Count me among the many obsessed with Galaxy Quest. Last year was, I believe, the 25th anniversary. I actually caught up with Sam Rockwell and Justin Long to talk about it.
Excellent.
The only thing, the only people that love Galaxy Quest more than the fans, I think, are the actors. You all love, you all really seem to have a deep affection for the making of that film and how it turned out. And I know for you, part of the joy was playing against type, correct?
Well, I'm much closer to Tawny and Gwen than I am to Ripley. I related to Gwen because she was, a woman in Hollywood who was constantly being judged and evaluated by how she looked all the time and how she moved, how she looked in her costume. And I felt that was very accurate. So I really enjoyed playing her. When I first wanted to be in it, I was told, no, they don't want anyone who's ever done science fiction to be in this movie. And I thought, well, if anyone knows how to make fun of science fiction, it's those of us who have been in these movies. And luckily, they changed directors, and so I got to be in it.
I know, lucky for all of us, I know those guys are still anxious to do a continuation. I know that you guys came close. Sadly, we obviously lost the great Alan Rickman, and I think right close to his passing, it was coming pretty close to happening.
Yeah, they were absolutely going to do it, and it had a very funny story.
Are you still in principal game, given the material coming in the right way, or does Alan's loss make it a little unusual or not right?
I think it would have happened by now, but I did, at a certain point, they talked about Benedict Cumberbatch playing a version of Alan's part. Very hard to come back to it without Alan there, because it's hard to tell from the film. Some of his scenes were cut because they weren't good for a child. They decided at the last minute it was a children's film because it was going to go up against Stuart Little. They cut some of Alan's great scenes, and I wish they'd put out a director's cut because those scenes are the best.
Hard to imagine it's even better, but that's awesome. And then, of course, we should talk about Avatar. There's more Avatar on its way. What a gift to reteam with Jim after all these years. He's mellowed a little bit, it seems. Like he's a genius. He obviously can. The thing about Jim, they always say, is like he can do everybody's job on set as better or as well as everybody. What's been the experience like working with Jim this time around versus way back when?
Well, it's wonderful. It wasn't until I went on tour with Jim, our sort of little victory tour after the Venice Film Festival, and had dinner with Jim a few times, that I finally went, hey, you're really funny. How come we never saw this Jim the whole time we were shooting? I think because it was a difficult shoot and he had so much to do. But I think he has mellowed. He's so lovely to work with. He's so interested in what the actor might contribute. He'll try anything. The beauty of this technology is that you don't have sets, you don't have lighting. You basically have the actors in their suits, and everything comes from that. People think that these movies are voiced. Not at all. This is the most pure acting I've ever had to do, because you aren't thinking of hair or makeup or any of those things, that it's all about the connection between you and your fellow actors. So I think that we've all really enjoyed having the privilege of working this way, and I think Jim is having a great time working with this particular company. You know, we're like a family now because we've all known each other. The little kids, like Trinity, who is 7, she's now like 15, you know, gorgeous. Jack is like a giant. So it's really amazing to still be together, still working after all this time.
Have you shot, like, when's the last time you shot stuff? Because this goes way back. 2 and 3 were shot years and years ago.
Yeah, but we kept coming back to them and refining them, which is very easy to pick up. And of course, 4 and 5 are absolutely extraordinary scripts. So I'm pretty sure Jim will direct them.
I was going to say, he seems to be hedging, but you believe he's going to finish
Yeah,
it out.
I mean, we don't want him to feel trapped. But I think that we really do love working together, and so I think that will work out. Not exactly sure when we will shoot them, but I guess it depends on how 3 does. So please go to see it 5,000 times. It is going to be a great movie. Very different in keeping with our times. It is a darker movie.
And we'll start to learn maybe a little bit more about your character's mysterious past.
Yes, yes, yes.
Something else to look forward to is, of course, you have to be part of the Star Wars universe. It's like written in the stars. It has to happen. I'm surprised it took this long. Is that just like a phone call from Jon Favreau? Like, how did that come around?
Yeah, like I got this call from Jon. I mean, I don't want to be greedy and just eat franchises like a monster. But I got a call from Jon Favreau, who I'm a great admirer of, and we talked, and he said, just start watching the show. And I was, of course, amazed by it and fell in love with it. And Pedro and Grogu, I mean, also, I love how the Star Wars universe it's not trying to pay off each movie with the whole backlog of movies. It's now, individual stories set in the same universe. Ours is set in the Outer Rim. So I was thrilled. I was only on the set for a few days, but I was surrounded by all kinds of different creatures. I got a drink from someone with a very different kind of head than I have.
Don't talk about Pedro Pascal that way. What?
No.
So you get to work with both Pedro and Grogu. Quality time with Mandalorian and Grogu?
I'm the luckiest girl in the world.
Also lucky, I mean, to see you in that iconic costume, like the X-Wing pilot costume. Again, who would have thunk it? Amazing.
Not I, yeah. It was a whole new world, so I feel very fortunate that I got to do that.
I mean, we've touched on only a small part of your career. I mean, there's obviously all the amazing non-quote-unquote genre work, too. What do people consistently bring up 1 or 2 things on the day-to-day, or is it, like, can you clock Alien versus Galaxy Quest fan coming from 10 yards away? Like, what is it like to be Sigourney Weaver out in the universe?
It makes me realize how lucky I am. I feel like the fans don't go to everything, so that I have Gorillas in the Mist fans who are often coming up to me, especially now that we've just lost the amazing Jane Goodall. So there's a lot of concern about the Gorillas. Some people love The Year of Living Dangerously. I feel like they don't overlap. I do have small children coming up to me talking about Alien, which is worrying because they're very small. They're like 3 or 4, and I'm thinking, how do they cope with this? They're gonna be in therapy for years. So
How did your child handle watching Alien, watching mom run away from a xenomorph? At what age did you see it?
I didn't show it to her because I wanted her to feel that being her mom was the most important job. I didn't want her to be, so I never showed my movies at home. I think she finally saw Alien at a friend's house in high school and then studied aliens in a sci-fi class in college. She's a good sport about all of this. Must be really weird. But you know, she just got married, so she can't wait to show her husband Ice Storm. I said, "You really want to show him Ice Storm?" But anyway, so no, she's very good about it. She's very good.
We're about to bring out a special guest. I just want to cue the folks backstage to have our special guest ready. But before we do that, yeah, here's the golden question related to Alien and Aliens. Which one do you prefer? You can only choose one, Sigourney. I'm sorry.
You know, they're so utterly different. There's so much each director's vision that I don't have a favorite. I think that Jim Cameron wrote an extraordinary big part for a woman in those days, and I will always be grateful. But Ridley Scott has always had very strong female roles too, and so absolutely, and so you know, I've just been really lucky. The guys I've worked with really appreciate strong women, so I found a really good group, you know.
Well, speaking of strong women, look, we talked about the ensemble in Alien, and that, again, the way that Ridley and company cast that film, it really holds up. It's an amazing company of actors. We're going to have a little reunion on stage right now because we have another acting legend in the house, and she's also contributed so much, not only to Alien, but to the entire genre, from The Birds, Witches of Eastwick, so much more. Please give a warm welcome to the one and only Veronica Cartwright is here.
Should we put these down? Or
We're going to bring another chair in.
These chairs are wobbly. Hi.
Veronica, thank you so much for joining us. What a treat.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
it's very cool.
Have you guys seen each other in the last 40 years? I mean,
Yes, we've seen each other a couple of times, a few
Yeah.
times.
yeah.
But it has been a while.
It's been a while. Sometimes the cast of Aliens will get together at Calgary. I think we did that, and but this is, you know, this is very unusual, and so it's really cool.
Yeah.
It's a
Two
special treat.
women.
It's a special treat for all of us. Veronica, I'd love to get your perspective on some of what we discussed, because again, nobody really knew what Alien was going to be. I've heard you talk about it like, oh, this is a B movie. This is a job, and it's a B movie. Is that fair to say what your attitude was at the time on set, or?
Well, I don't think what Ridley did was cast people that were not like superstars or movie stars. He cast really good people, because what Ridley likes to do is do the scenery and all of the stuff to make sure that it all looks perfect. And he got really competent and great actors together so that we could, he didn't have to worry about us. And so it was great. I mean, I must say, you brought up the first thing of Kane letting us into the shuttle without being, you know, do we keep you apart, do you not? And I come in, and of course, I'm so upset. Well, it's in the director's cut, but it's not in the main movie. And I went to slap Sigourney across the face because she was a bitch for not letting us in. Well, every time I went to slap Sigourney, she ducked. So Ridley comes
Oh,
over.
no, I think you got me a couple of good ones.
Well, no, but because
Isn't
Ridley
that in
comes
the movie?
in the director's cut, not in the first
Oh, I
cut.
didn't realize that.
So Ridley comes over to me and he goes, "Would you just fucking get her this time?" I said, "Well, okay." So I go like that, you duck, and I backhanded you. And you were not a happy camper. But the pro that she is, she stuck with it.
No, I thought it was perfect. You know, we did a lot of, not exactly improvisation, but it was, Ridley preferred us not to quite know what we were going to do. He wanted it, that feeling of just being in such danger that you're not quite, you're not quite thinking clearly, and all hell is breaking loose.
But at the same time, we were a crew that had been together for years, and so those tensions all build up. I mean, as Ridley said, we were truckers in space, and that's what we were. Things were breaking down, and we had to keep getting them fixed, and I thought myself I was the bravest of all, saying, "Let's get out of here," but nobody listened to me.
It would have been one film then, no franchise. You'll escape the alien. What do you remember about the sets themselves and the xenomorph? I mean, like, the sets are so palpable. They do feel lived in. It is that kind of iconic. It's iconic now. But how did it feel stepping onto those sets? And did the xenomorph in person read as something that the audience was going to buy, or, oh, this is really silly, I'm worried?
Oh, no, he was scary as shit. I mean, he was magnificent. He was like 7'2". He was part of the Maasai tribe. Balaji's hands, I mean, Maasai are built very long and thin. His hands were below his kneecaps. So when they put his gloves on and his whole bodysuit, I mean, it was unbelievable. And he had gone and taken Tai Chi and mime classes, so he could roll himself up into a ball and slowly stand up and then just stand there. Like when I'm meet my demise, I mean, he was petrifying because he just stood there and then he went like, he was magnificent. He was so wonderful. And what I loved was he would walk around with these big blue sneakers with the big white sneakers and his head off, but his bodysuit on. And Tom Skerritt said, this guy's got to be able to sit down. He had him build a swing for him. So he used to sit in this swing with the tail behind him. It was and big blue sneakers. It was hysterical. He was lovely.
He was lovely, and also you put someone like that in the suit, it also becomes, it's terrifying, but it's also one of the most beautiful things
Yes.
you'll ever see. So erotic, frightening, elegant, I think it's exactly what Ridley was looking for.
Well, because they found him, he was a graphic artist. They found in a pub. And he just sort of fit this description of, because there was sort of ambiguity as to which way they wanted to go. Was it going to be a hermaphrodite? Was it going to be this, that, and the other? And they saw him, and he was willing to do everything except the maggots in the brain.
Can you blame him?
Understandable.
There's so much lore about all the scenes, but especially the first chestburster scene with John Hurt. I'd love to hear just your perspectives on how it played out in real time for you guys. So you weren't.
We were left up in the dressing room for hours while they fit up John in his chest. We didn't know quite what was happening. We'd read
in the script.
It was in the script, and Sigourney and I had actually gotten to go down because we shot a scene after that event, and we didn't know what it was that was supposed to be coming out of this chest. So they took us down to the puppet place where they had this. He wasn't flesh-colored at this point. He was just a gray penis. And these guys were so excited because they go, look, look. And the chest would breathe, and they go, oh, wait until we get the teeth in there. And we're going, oh, okay. It was just so weird. It was very weird. But when it all happened, for me, anyway, there were 4 cameras. And we walked behind this shield of plastic, and there were big buckets of offal around. I mean, I retched as I walked on the set. And it was just so tense, and what you see was the first take. I mean, it was unbelievable. And I leaned right into a blood jet. which I did not realize was there.
I mean, everyone, we came down, everyone was wearing a
Plastic.
poncho.
A plastic
And,
poncho.
Dan and Ron were off in the corner going, it's like Christmas for them to see the chest burster come out. And what I remember about that day, because it was very early on really, is I was so stunned by John's acting. You really felt he was dying. And it was such a powerful performance. And honestly, yeah, when the little thing jumps out, there's this great take where we're all we all watch it. Noah Hawley uses real effects, and these guys would be under the table, and then honestly, this thing came out and ran out of the room in like 1 or 2 takes, and it's a master. It's the only one where we're just like, what the fuck? It's like, what just happened?
It was great. And what was so interesting about it, it was so simple. Now they do CGI and everything. There was a slit down the table, and a guy on a dolly underneath the table with the little guy, and he turned and stuff. And it was just mesmerizing, and then whipped him off. I mean, it was just whipped him off. It was amazing. The whole thing was magnificently done.
Very quick. They were just extraordinary. With just some hose and some little things to squeeze and everything, they just made the whole thing happen, all of it. It was so elegantly done.
Now I kind of wish everybody in unison had just turned and said, "What the fuck?" The film holds up. I mean, we're talking about these practical effects, and you would think somehow like, oh, we're now so used to like slick CGI and everything, and that has its place, but I don't know, does it strike you, like how wide does this movie hold up as well as it does?
Well, I think it's perfect because it is practical. I mean, it's no CGI where you're looking at something that's made up after you've finished the movie. Everything was practical. Those sets were the most magnificent things you've ever seen. We took over the entire Shepperton studio, and each soundstage had something on it. And at one point, the desert scene was the largest soundstage in Europe at the time. And they filled that thing with sand, and they put these spacesuits on us, and moon boots, and hockey gloves that were painted and wouldn't bend, and forgot to give us air holes, so we were, it was every set, the big vaginas I mean, and you look at those things and you think, oh my God, what am I in? I mean, and the engine room, it was so claustrophobic because everything was connected. You went to the engine room, you went down the hall, to the left was the hospital, to the right was the dining area. Everything was connected, and every day you went onto the set, you'd have to walk down this, which gave you that feeling of claustrophobia. Everything was done for a purpose. And then as the movie progresses, they would stand there with those cylinders of glycerin and spray them on. I was like, oh, God almighty. Every particle of dust by the end of the day was glued to your body. It was pretty gross.
I loved the sets. Coming from the theater, I thought, wow, it's so nice of them to build these really real sets for us. And then, of course, we'd be in these sets, like the consoles. We were never allowed to touch those buttons. We always had to touch fake buttons over here. And so the whole thing was, to me, very funny,
Yeah.
It was absolutely real, but you couldn't use it,
Anne Ridley loved smoke. There was smoke constantly. Our original actor for John Hurt was John Finch, and he had just gotten out of the hospital having pneumonia. And after the first day of shooting with all that smoke, he was back in the hospital. And so John Hurt comes in, and in the meantime, I'd had all my hair cut off, and it was like a crew cut. And John comes in, and he had the same haircut and the same complexion. I said, I didn't know we were clones of each other. It was like, Oh, no. It was just,
Sigourney, do you remember the first time you saw the film? Is there any recollection of?
Yes, I'm sure I can recall that.
I mean, for either of you, like it must have been, again, you have the experience on set and it sounds like it was very rewarding, but like, again, the music, everything coming
well,
together.
you know, they didn't give a premiere. There was no premiere. I went down to the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood and saw it by myself. And people, when the chest burster happened, were getting up out of their seats and leaving the theater. Nobody had seen anything like it. It was really super impressive, I thought. I mean,
Oh, I forgot they didn't have an opening for
they
us.
didn't have an opening. I know,
well.
we were just a B movie.
I know. Yeah.
Then,
Yes.
For both of you, is it kind of like a demarcation point in your career? There's before Alien and there's after Alien, because it's still a part, look, we're here. It's still a part of all of our lives. Do you look back at Alien as kind of a pivotal moment in your respective careers?
Well, I certainly do, because I learned not to look in the camera, which I kept doing, and Ridley kept saying, you can't look in the camera, and I said, well, I'd love to not look in the camera, but you keep putting it right in front of me. So I didn't, and actually Tom Skerritt explained to me where I should look, sort of not in the camera, but around it. And so all these basic things I had to learn very quickly. That's certainly, but I'm so amazed and thrilled that it is still such a loved movie. And I think so much credit should be given to Ridley Scott, Truckers in Space,
yeah.
It's not elegant sci-fi, it's the real deal.
Absolutely.
Well, events like this make me realize I can't believe I get to do this for a living, because what a treat for me and for all of us here today to get to talk about Alien and their respective careers.
It's a treat for us, too. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much for taking the time out today. Give it up one more time, Veronica Cartwright, Sigourney Weaver, everybody. Come on.